Pussy Gloves here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this sort of tonal kick. I'm going for something that's similar to either an electro kick. This is more similar to the electro style than it is to the hardstyle style. However, if I just take off a couple of effects, I'll have a hardstyle kick. But these are some of the things I was referencing. Something like that. Something that's a very tonal, but it doesn't get in the way of the track, so you can still write stuff on top. So like here, I literally took a bunch of loops out of a Vengeance pack and just put them on top, and to focus on just focusing on the kick. So it's a pretty simple deal. Now the kick itself, I'm a little embarrassed on how long I spent making this. I spent a really long time making this. There's a couple things that we need to consider when we're making a kick like this. You'll see I actually went through an entire effects stack, and then I went through another one. So there's a lot to do in this sound. You may or may not have as many levels as I have, and I did a crap ton of experimentation. So I've also seen people do it with a vocoder, and they got really clean results that way too. So I was considering going that route, but I didn't mess with the vocoder. You'll notice that if I change the source material on this kick, so I went with something that had a sample. I went for that sample. Let me see if I can turn off the effects here. And the original kick sounded, it's the wrong effect button, like this. That's what I started with. So it's long, it extends out. That's the big deal. Okay, if you have a short thing, it's not going to work as great. But if you do have a short thing, you have other options. So in order to get that length out, here I have another one that's kind of long, and here's another one. You notice that the tuning happens from the EQ and the pitch time stretching module in here. But what I do for kicks that are too short, like this one was actually too short, is you just write notes that are lower. And so you see this is actually a G4, where the pitch that I'm clicking right here would be a C5. I hit a G4 and it time stretches it down. If you're going to do that, you need to have it on a mode that's friendly towards this. So I have it on auto, so that when I write lower notes, they appropriately stretch to the correct value. Okay, so let's talk about the processing, because there, as you saw, there's a lot. Now, the basic idea is actually pretty darn simple, but to get something that sounds smooth and nice and like usable and big all at the same time is a hard order, because it's so crazy. Let me explain why. So first, let's turn off the effects here, and we'll turn off the effects one by one on this guy for now. Okay, so here, the first thing I do is I run it through an EQ, right? I immediately begin to shape it. Now, you're going to see a lot of EQs with a lot of crazy shapes that are all the result of just a ton of experimentation. You might be saying, how did you know you were going to do this? I did not know, man. I was grabbing every freaking tool I could think of to get me closer to this goal. So there's a boost, because I'm going to be hitting Maximus next. See this? These kicks are very long, and in order to do that, you've got to extend their length and pull up what was going down. So before it was boom, 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 I need to be like bo, 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 like just a straight freaking tone. And so that's one reason why you need some length on it. But anyways, here we go. We've got this. Some people will synthesize their own kicks, or they'll use drum machines. It's whatever you want. You just need some sort of a thing to distort, right? So I went for an EQ. After that, we followed up with some really aggressive compression, well, upward compression or expansion. And so as you can see here, right here, as frequency as it comes in, it pulls the signal up and keeps it up for a very long time. I ended up settling on this curve. This is not a mega important step anymore, but it was one when I started out that was very important, because check it out. If I take it away, let me turn everything back on. If I take it away, and let me turn it back on, you can hear the extended, but the tone is there. See, the tone's there, but you hear the boom, boom, boom. That's all this is doing. So maybe you want the shorter one, but I wanted something that really pulled out. So this guy is pulling our signal back up for us. It's important in that it's early in the chain. Next up, we go through a Transient Master. Now, I used to have my sustain way up, because I was going to use it to essentially do more of this. But that ended up just making I did not like what it was doing after I got farther into the chain. So I turned that back down, but I left the attack up. If I turn this guy off, Not much of a change. So this guy, I mean, honestly, you could probably remove him. But if you want to do like exactly what I did, that's what I did. Next up, I go through 2 wave shapers. Now this gets a little, these are important, the shapes are, but they've gotten less important the farther I go. You see, when you have this many steps, some steps that this used to play like an ultra important role in the sound, and now it plays a not so important role. But this curve right here will change the way it hits it. You see, when this thing detects your waveform and shapes it, this curve will because a kick is essentially some sort of a tone, and then it has a pitch drop. Boo, boo, boo. If that pitch drop hits this thing in a weird way, you'll end up getting like a resonancy type deal. Where it's like doop, doop, doop. It doesn't sound great. So if you do something like this, yeah, they've become really less important as I've gone here. Let's try messing with this one. Let me show you just on a regular kick. I realized I just smacked my lips into the microphone. I'm sorry for you people that don't like that. Okay, let's just grab a regular kick so I can show you, because it's a pretty severe problem sometimes. I'll put it on this channel that I've not unzipped. Okay, it's going to channel 10. Perfect. Channel 10. Distort. Cool. Now let's add a distortion unit. Okay, and now we turn up. Whoops, I'm not even on a new pattern. Come on now. And we are going to fill this every 4 beats. And hit play. Cool. Now as I distort it. Okay, so yeah, it's muted. Man, that sounds like it's in my room. That little resonancy thing. But now if I make it a straight line or do something like this, so you get more of a air versus a curve line. You can really tame it if you're just careful about those first couple. Anything that also gives you a straight line is going to heavily influence the curve you get out, the way it sounds. So you may consider going for more of a curve. So anyways, you can mess with that. Those are just some things I noticed while I was messing with this a lot, was that those were 2 trends. So I have 2 of them. They used to be very important, but if I turn them off now and play the other pattern, what is it, pattern 6? You see they don't, but if I turn them on now, so it's like they contribute to each other. The other thing is you can replace these with other distortion types, which I do over here. I have a pretty fast distortion. I mix this one into taste, but you could throw all kinds of distortion down and just see what they do to your kick. Essentially, you just need to distort it a lot. Now, every time you distort something and clip it like that, it's going to introduce a whole bunch more harmonics. So it's natural if you distort something, you're going to need to follow it up with some sort of EQ, because now you've got harmonics that were not there before, and you need to shape them. So I go through an M equalizer. Now I like this equalizer, and the only reason I use it currently is because of its killer ability to just show me grids and stuff on the spectrum. So like it shows me an actual spectrogram. It can do peak holds. It can do true peaks. It shows me the notes, which is the reason I grabbed it in the first time. And this is actually free. So you can go on to meldaproductions.com and get it. But that's besides the point. Also, this is really kind of cool. It has a soft saturation, so it'll actually apply distortion on your EQ, and I have it up to 52%, 52.4%. And this is the curve I settled on. Without the EQ in it, check it out. So we're getting closer to that hardstyle kick. If I left more things off, we would have a much closer to hardstyle kick. And these small moves here can change a lot. And I'm like scared to touch it, so I'm not going to touch it. But you get something that you like here, okay? And let's go ahead and I'll show you what it sounds like without the other stuff. So there you go. That's what we have thus far. And for some people, that's like the sound they're looking for. For other people, if you're going for like a track that I just showed you, that's not the sound you're going to want. Next up, we go into an EQ. And This EQ, as you can see, I am taking crap freaking away everywhere. Like, just go away. And so we get a much more subdued sound, but then we get that sound. And that's where these guys messing with the shapes in here. You see how much more like subdued that sounds versus when I have it out? So it's just a lot darker. It's the higher frequencies, not so much of a problem. So because of what I was showing you earlier. Now, this is what I run it through, and you see it's pretty extreme, but I'm going for that sort of, if you listen to the Vengeance samples, which I was sort of using as my standard, because I quite like some of the way they did this. They're dark. There's a big clicky kick. There's a big clicky kick, but you see that the boom, boom, that's not that loud. Like, it's not that crazy. Others are louder, and I chose to make my tonal kick quite a bit louder, but it's also layered with a clicky kick. So there's a kick in here that's sole job in life is to provide that. It's really obvious with their kicks too that they're two entirely separate sounds. So next up, so we hit this. So what do I do next? I compress it back. So I pull everything back up. And just the process of doing this, you notice I don't do it to the highs because why would I do that after I just filtered it out? I don't want them back. And so that's what I end up getting. Before, after. This is almost like an EQ in a way because I'm pulling up the mids and the lows a little bit. And you get that. Next up, we go into another EQ. Cool. So this EQ is just more shaping. I'm trying to get closer to this over here, something more subdued. But you notice that the tone in between them is like, it's not ooh, ooh, ooh. Like there's more of like a ooh, 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 especially on the one. There's a kit in here that has an F kick that I really liked, and theirs did not have an overtone structure like mine. So I'm sort of searching right now at this point to get a structure like that. In this case, this is like the shape I settled on. This area, man, just the smallest moves. So you see, it changes everything. Like you can just move stuff around because of every time you go through a stage like this that brings back harmonics. Now you have a whole bunch more stuff to shape. When you have stuff to shape, making EQ moves is going to sound really different. This next step is going to sound a little crazy, but I put a chorus on it. I put a chorus on it because it just sounded it sounded super, like it was mono, and obviously you kind of wanted it to be mono, but then I wasn't sure if I wanted it to be mono, and so I said, you know what, I'm going to mess with the chorus and see if I can get something nice. Of course, it's pretty light. The LFO is at a really low value. Everything else is at its default value, including the cutoff frequency. But we have now I have a video on my FO12 effects on how to use this thing. The depth is down pretty low, and the delay is as low as it can go. And I liked what it did. It really brought it out. And what I did later, I believe in a later, so okay, that completes our first effect stack. So that was that. Then I was like, crap, I need more. So I went to I routed it to a new channel, and I began to work again. Now I think I used it on this one. I didn't. On one of these Maximi, I did I do it? I guess I didn't. I thought I had messed with the stereo separation knob on the multiband. That'd be another cool thing you could do to maybe shape it a little bit more. But this one was one I was finally starting to get some results over here that I was digging. So first up, I just did that chorus and stuff. So I was like more EQ, and this is what I did. Let me turn off these guys. And you can see at this point, I'm getting pretty close. Like, I am pretty stoked. The chorus, oh yeah, the other reasoning behind the chorus was, it sounds like theirs, like it could, like my sound I felt could be smoothed out. The harmonics could be turned more into like a tone type deal if I put a chorus on it. So I was like, I'll chorus it. So, and it was getting me places. I was like, that was the move to make. And then I came over here. Now this distortion happened a little bit after the fact, so we're going to skip it. And we're going to go on to Maximus. So on this Maximus, I'm pulling stuff up very lightly. It was sort of a touchier move, these ones. But on the high end anyways, because this high end was something that I wasn't totally after. This Maximus plays a huge role in the way I treat the middle band, though. You notice the band is in an unusual position. It's not default. And then the low I left completely alone. Why is that? Well, I wanted to pull up, and I turned the attack down on these guys because I was having issues with my kick coming out of time. Like, it would come in way after that initial hit, and so that was not good. So I ended up taking the attack down to try and fix that. But another thing that also would affect that is how steep this curve is right here. So I was doing a combination of them both. But you notice this is being pulled up pretty dramatically, but it's not where it normally is. I'm focusing on that part of the spectrum and those kicks I was basing my judgments off of that I really wanted to pop out and shine, but in that subdued sort of manner. So I didn't want to do too much more to them. And then you get it. And that was like, this is the sound. I got really excited and I started just messing around with this like a whole crap more. And so this is what I ended up settling on. You don't want to go for those low. You want that low stuff to just sort of be on its own. There's going to be a sweet spot for this. And so I'm digging around for this sweet spot. I found it. So I was pretty stoked about that. At this point, I was like, let's go home. But I kept going anyway. So next up, let's throw on the EQ that follows after it. This distortion sort of happened after this stage. So more shaping. And then I was like, because I was doing some references, and so that's pretty awesome right there. But this was like my reference, and now I'm pretty darn close to what I was aiming for. So I was just kind of blown away by like how many steps this was. I thought when I was asked to do this, I thought this was going to be a way simpler process, but it was not. And then let's throw on this distortion. Now, here's without. Here's with. So it gives it that overdriven sort of deal. You know it's very low, but what are the settings on this guy? Well, it's on A. The threshold's been brought all the way down. To me, it almost feels like up, but it's all the way down. The mix, post, all the way down. The pre, that's it. This is just a couple knobs. Just another type of distortion. So fruity, fast distort, and that's what I did. And so as a result, I got that nice overdriven sound. And finally, we run it through a limiter. And this limiter is doing a little bit. It's pushing the gain up just a smudge. And the other important thing, you see here that this gate, the release is actually a little bit faster than it normally is, because I did not like the release sound by like that much. So I put a gate on so that when the signal drops below this level, it'll turn down a little bit faster, essentially manipulating the envelope. Well, that's what a gate is really supposed to do. It's a downward expander in this case. A signal goes below the level, and as it goes below this threshold, this yellow threshold, it'll turn down faster than it normally would. And if you're curious about the fruity limiter, I have a tutorial on it in the FL12 Effects series. And you end up with that awesome kick sound. Now, there's another side to this kick. There's another side to this kick. This kick has a friend. You know what? It's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if I like that now. But I've been working on it so long, it's hard to make solid judgments sometimes. Okay, so now let's look at the other side of this kick. There's one other side of this kick. It is this guy. And you might be going, wow, it's really short and really separate and completely sounds like a different sound. And that's just the way these kicks roll. So I went with that. And you'll notice that I have the pogo on. The pitch has been brought down. If I take I don't really want to take it up. Let me clone the channel. So clone. Okay, so this kick was this kick originally. It was a very short kick to start with. I went in the Black Octopus thing and I grabbed kick 30, F30, in the Leviathan pack. And I was looking for something that had a really clicky sound. And a lot of these kicks, if you listen to them, they have these sort of really, the attacks are really different. So I just started getting crazy, right? And trying to find something that worked. And you just put that at the beginning to pronounce the transient of the kick. And then you put that bow, wow, and that comes in afterwards. And then the trick is getting this thing to align with when your kick comes up. Because it's bow, wow, like there's a ow part of it, which means there's the B. Like if we take the word and just go bow, there's going to be a part where we go buh, but that transient's not pronounced enough. So we put a little ta. So it's like da at the beginning now. But then we have this ow, and we need that ow part to fall in time. So it's like bow, 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 instead of ow, ow. Like we don't want something that sounds dumb. So you got to fiddle with it a little bit to get your timing right. And again, those things are affected by pretty much everything in this chain. because it's got to come into the wave shaper, and you'll actually see a line come in. You see that line? When that line comes in and out, it will do weird things to different parts of your sound if it's not been. Yeah, the whole process, you should be sensitive to this. If it's been like made weird, if you have something like that, you're going to have some issues with your envelope. This is not going to be the attack that you want. So, and just the curves and stuff can make a big difference on that. The way your EQ can do this. Why? Because it's a big pitch bend. So if you put a big boost right here and don't boost anything over here is the initial like hit, right? The bow. But if you boost it over here, it's going to go wow, 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 because you're going to hear that low end go whoa, whoa, whoa. And so those are all issues that you're going to have. So almost everything in this chain can affect it just because of the nature of the kick sound. To tune the kick, you have two options. You can change where you're boosting your low or cutting your low, and you have that as an option. And you can change where you just want to be careful about where you're boosting up mostly. The other option you have is the actual pitch on here. That pitch. Now you want to be careful. This should also, if you take it down too low, you want to have enough of a tone out of your kick to get the ow sound out of it. And so I use this principally for tonal reasons first, and then I'll nudge it around by super small amounts, trying to find a spot where it sits well in the track. The other thing is, you want to first use that. Yeah, so that's a good lesson. First use that to find a good tone for your kick. So let's say that this kick sound is going into channel 1. So now it sounds like the other kicks we have, right? It sounds like that, right? And you see how that, I do not like the way this, as source of material is important. And so as we come up here though, maybe this is something we want. Now is this really going in the same chain? Wow, I am impressed. It sounds completely different. Anyways, you get a kick sound that in this case you would mess with this pretty heavily, but then you could write a lower note so it comes out longer. And you get that tone. See, if you take down if you take it down, it sounds like it just sounds like total crap. If you take it up though, you'll get more of a tone out of it. There's more stuff to distort. So taking that away. So yeah, that's the kick. Now on this guy, besides the fact, so we got the clicky sound, and you see I even used the pogo option here. It like skews your waveform in time kind of in weird ways. I used to know like the exact definition, but I know what it like. You can see visually what it does, so I did not retain in my memory. I know what it sounds like too. So that's more important in my book. This is the head click, the head kick, the head click, the head kick. And in here, it's going through an EQ. And I took out some of the high end just because I have other stuff in my track. Don't need that. And I actually boosted some of the low end. I wanted to meld with my other kick. And then, contrary to popular belief, then I pull crap up in the high and mid. Don't worry too much about the lows. And after that, we go through a Transient Master. It's got the attack way up because I want that click. And I also go through here. Now, I don't care too much about distortion with this sort of a deal because that battle was like, we just don't care right now about that. So I just went for the clickiest freaking click, click, click. Like, just make it loud. And then mixing wise, I actually brought the kick up, the tonal kick. I liked it a little bit louder. And that's how you do that. Now, if you have any other questions, I mean, I guess fire away. This was a longer process than I'd anticipated. I didn't mix it with any of the other elements, but I am pretty stoked with the kick that I got coming out of this because there are tutorials on YouTube where people show you how to make kicks, but most of them are just those to just throw distortion on it and then they like call it good. It's not super useful. They go like, oh yeah, take this kick, put it on channel 20 because that's like a special magic channel. Grab a wave shaper. Make sure you grab the fast distortion because that's the best one. They'll tell you crap like that, and they'll be like, and you see there's your kick. Now you just make it. You get a good sounding kick, and you get a new pattern. Then you turn this down, and you turn it up really fast. And if you turn it up really fast, it's gonna sound better. And then you come over here, and you put and you're like, oh yeah, done. That's like what they do. And it drives me insane sometimes. Every now and then, though, you pick up a cool a couple tricks, like one that's common in most tutorials these days. One guy must have said it first, and the other one's picked up on it. So now I'm passing it on. Is the 909 kicks they tend to have those tones that extend out. I had already like basically made mine when I went and looked it up, but I was curious on what other people were doing. That's where I stumbled across the guy that did the fourth. He actually made a whole little series. He's called the fourth. The fourth, he did it with the vocoder, and that one actually came out pretty cool, and it gave you a lot of interesting options. But it wasn't the subdued kick. I couldn't find anything really. Yeah, I didn't look like mega hard though. So maybe there's some guy out there that's got a killer tutorial on the subject that I just don't know about. But anyways, that's my process. That's what I do. It's what I went through to get that. I told the person who asked for this, they probably just went into Vengeance and grabbed a kick. Because once you make one, you see it's quite a large amount of work to make another. So, but in a track like this, the kick is a pretty, like, there's not that much going on. You have like a couple of synth lines, some big snare, but there's really only room for like 4 or 5 elements in a track like this, because the kick, every element is just so big. There's not a lot of room for anything else. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.
Watch out!